Downtown Vancouver is one of the world's epicenters of addiction. In its vicinity, thousands of people use drugs by injection, inhalation, or ingestion, facing serious consequences for this. These people, often outside the law, suffer multiple medical problems due to the use of injectable substances and die from overdoses. Addiction is not a choice. It is a trench fight where the people affected are the soldiers on the front line, dying. For 12 years, Dr. Gabor Maté worked in this environment. And what he learned can be summarized in a simple way. Addiction is not a conscious choice that someone makes. It is not a moral failure, an ethical fault, a weakness of character, or a lack of will, although society perceives it as such, nor is it a hereditary brain disease as it is often understood. In reality, addiction is a response to human suffering. All the people Gabor worked with had experienced severe emotional injuries in their childhood. All the women had suffered profound psychological deficiencies. All the men had endured trauma, in addition to physical abuse and emotional neglect. This was not just his personal perspective, but also what scientific literature and research revealed. Therefore, addiction should not be understood as a disease in itself, or as a deliberate human choice, but as an attempt to temporarily escape from suffering. When Gabor began working on this topic, he already had 20 years of experience in family practice. He had seen a lot and was aware of the impact that childhood experiences have on adult psychology and brain physiology. However, he did not fully understand the depth and magnitude of these effects until he began to work in this field. That experience clarified how addiction is a response to suffering. As he said, what these people need is not judgment or a simple control of their symptoms. They need collaboration to heal their wounds, because everything revolves around this. The media often portray addicted individuals as desperate, but they rarely show the reasons for their desperation. They only present the urgency for drugs, without explaining what drives this need. People are perceived as dysfunctional, aggressive, manipulative, or unpleasant, but without a context that allows for a deeper understanding of their reality. This raises an important question. Is it possible to cure addiction? This questioning arises from the Western medical model, where the expert is presented as someone who cures the patient, as if he were a piece of meat that needs to be repaired. But it does not work that way. According to Gabor, posed in that way, the answer is no. It is not possible. However, if the question is it possible for people to heal from their anguish enough so as not to have to constantly escape into addictions? Then the answer is yes. The real issue is, under what conditions is that feasible? Under existing social, legal, and medical conditions, it is highly unlikely. This is because we are approaching the matter from the wrong direction, and with the wrong perspective, Gabor explains. If I were able to consistently demonstrate that, with this specific population, I could achieve a success rate of 5 to 15% in helping people overcome addiction, I would be considered a genius, given that the results obtained are extremely low. The addiction management model shows poor performance, particularly with the most affected segments of the population. Many people do recover from addictions, but the most deeply entrenched addicts, the ones suffering the most, are treated the worst by society, making it even harder to help them. They not only do not get the help they need, but they are actively punished. In essence, we are dealing with traumatized children. When children suffer abuse, it deeply affects how they feel about themselves, generating intense shame. Children tend to believe that what happens to them is their fault. If they are hurting me, they must be doing it because I am a terrible person. That deep shame is combined with tremendous emotional pain caused by abuse and neglect. To relieve that pain, these people turn to substances or obsessive behaviors. Additionally, trauma affects brain physiology. The human brain develops in connection with its environment, and early trauma rewires the brain in ways that make it more likely for people to seek relief in drugs or other addictive behaviors. Therefore, Gabor states, we take these traumatized people, and we make their habit illegal. It is not illegal to drink oneself to death or to get lung cancer from tobacco, but using other substances is. We put these abused, traumatized people outside the law, incarcerate them for life, treat them like failed criminals, and then wonder why they don't get better. It is a self-perpetuating cycle. And at the same time, we ask, why don't they stop being addicts? They don't stop because the more pain they are in, the more they need to escape. Put another way, the addiction was never the problem. The real problem is the deep emotional pain they don't know how to handle. So addiction was an attempt to deal with a crisis. When you ask why people use substances or engage in addictions, the answer is always the same. They have a problem they do not know how to solve. If we truly want to understand addiction, we must ask, what caused you so much emotional pain? Why didn't you have the inner resources to handle it? This is not a judgment, just an investigation. At some point, the individual did not have the resources to handle suffering in a more creative or constructive way. So addiction became the only available solution at that moment. And that is the case with all addictions. Carl Jung, one of the main founders of analytical psychology, played a crucial role in the development of Alcoholics Anonymous AA. His interaction with Bill Wilson, the founder of AA, helped establish the spiritual component of the 12-step recovery program. Jung once told a hopeless alcoholic patient that the only way he had ever seen someone like him recover was through a deep spiritual transformation. In a letter to Wilson, Jung later wrote, "I see alcoholism as a low-level equivalent of our being's spiritual thirst for plenitude. Expressed in medieval language, it would be called union with God." Jung explained that the word alcohol comes from the Arabic al-kul, meaning spirit that consumes the body. For Jung, the solution to addiction was not merely behavioral, it was spiritual. The true antidote to addiction was not control, but a transformation of the psyche, a reconnection with the soul. Jung observed that modern society, with its emphasis on consumerism and gratification, creates an environment conducive to addiction. A deep sense of emptiness permeates our culture. The addict is more aware of this emptiness than most people. Many of us resemble addicts in our ineffective efforts to fill the spiritual black hole, the void at the center where we have lost touch with our soul and spirit. Jung suggested that overcoming addiction requires a spiritual awakening, a return to deep meaning beyond material distractions. As Gabor Maté concludes, addiction is not a disease. It is a procedure carried out in order to survive.